So she's a maiden guest, and I'm excited to have her with me tonight. Well, Salome, thank you for joining. Thank you for honoring my invite. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here. So thank you everyone that's watching us. It's family meeting. And the reason why it's called family meeting is because it's informal. It's let's get to find out what is kicking us. What is it that's propelling us? We all have times in our lives when we get to that spot where you just have to make that change. Things change for you and you decide, no, living the ordinary life is not enough. You need to be fulfilled. So when you see people that are climbing the ladder and scaling, you want to find out what it is, how are they doing it? So Salome is a commissioner is an Irish commissioner for peace and equality. And if you look, when I went through a track record, everything she's ever done is just in line with peace, equality, justice, passionate about women, passionate about sisterhood. She's the first woman that started an immigrant organization for women, supporting immigrants at a time when she didn't even have to. She had no cause to. So Salome, I'm going to start with you then. What pushed you to start Akidwa? And what does Akidwa mean? What's behind? Tell us the story of Akidwa first.
Thank you so much. But maybe I may start with the word legacy, because when I came into this meeting, I was actually so much driven into, to the word that you have used, as the core of our discussion, which is actually the legacy. People think that legacy is for the rich. They think it's for people who have the power. They think it's for people who are better off. But actually, legacy is for every one of us. And actually, each and every one of us leave a legacy. They have a legacy. A legacy is an everyday thing. May I say that? It's actually the words you speak. It's the actions you do. It's everything that you do. I remember that actually my father, he died 10 years ago now. In February this year, he'll be 10 years dead. But he used to say things that actually we talk about them now, So it wasn't that, he was putting money and leaving, all this land that you want to live and properties and everything that you want to live, but it's the words, and his actions, because it's about, being humane. It's about actually reaching out. It's about, saying words that people, they will sound in people's mind. I was telling my mother about my father and what he used to say and how that echoes in my mind every time. So just to remind to everybody who might be listening that legacy is an everyday thing. It's how we live our lives. It's what we say. It's what we do. So our actions, our thought, everything that we do, because it's actually helped the other person. I also did a course actually in America a few years ago now, it's 10 years, and we learned about legacy. And that, we are over 6 billion actually people in the world, 6.5 billion of population of the world, of the earth. And each of us has unique talent. We have unique fingerprint. We have unique, toe print. We have things that are so unique that all of us are bringing something very, very different to actually what we become, as a continent, as a world. We are all very different. And the importance of knowing that, legacy stands with us. It doesn't matter whether we are poor. It doesn't matter whether we are women. It doesn't matter whether we are men or not. It's actually what you stand up to. And our values, our values are very important as well, because we are our own values. And so my values of me here today is the values of everybody else, because you would want to have the very best for the other person in the world and how they live. And really like that have driven me to understand my call for standing up for justice and equality, and even coming up with Akidwa, because for me, I think I also learned it from my father, how he could not stand up in justice and how people are treated, how we have actually the have and the have not. Because you see, I come from Kenya and I was born in Kenya, but you have a very high population of people who live in what we call absolute poverty. And I try actually to argue, why don't they have food? Why don't they have this and that? And isn't it because, you know, some people grab to have more, that they will not they will not use all of it there, but it's actually to make themselves feel better. And so for me, I carried that here, that everywhere I go, I try to look into that inequality and injustice. And when I ended up in Dublin and in Ireland, I couldn't believe even my own experience of, you know, being treated unequal because I look different. I couldn't open, for example, a bank account. I was called names and all these kind of things happening. I had very, very, very bad stories of women and how they were experiencing, and I was actually questioning myself, how on earth can this allowed to happen? And so myself, I started speaking about my experiences, you know, of inequality and injustice that I was experiencing. And so it was the story of so many other women, but I gave them the confidence and the confidence to talk about it. You know, I encouraged them to speak for themselves. And that's how Akidwa started. It started actually of sharing our experiences of discrimination, experiences of isolation, from small actually things of 7 women meeting, discuss how our children are doing in school, where they're experiencing discrimination at the time, because you know, it was assumed that our children came from countries where the English is not spoken. In school, they used to be put in one corner, you know, because they're throwing the rest of the population or the rest of the children in school. So they would be put in one corner and be, you know, followed by, but really they're pushing others behind. And so, you know, we started talking about the experiences of our children, experiences of us as women who had come into this country 20 years ago. I'm here 26 years now. But we started talking about these inequalities and how we couldn't even access jobs. And even up to now, it doesn't mean that many women and men in this country who are of a migrant background still do get to access employment that matches their qualifications. And so I have been advocating for equality and justice for a long time, which did not actually only start in Ireland. I was very active. I was actually reminding somebody that, you know, my leadership skills did not develop from coming to Europe and me being vocal. I was very vocal in secondary school. I led movement. I was a house captain, you know, or a prefect, you know, for a house, managing 200 girls, you know, in school. I was a young girl. I didn't even know what, I didn't even see it as leadership. For me, I saw it as something normal and something that we should stand up to and ensure that, you know, everybody understand their position in life and where we are heading to. So that's how I have actually stood up with my whole belief of equality and justice. And I have continued to enlighten myself better of, you know, the human rights principles and why we should not actually allow people to take our human rights, because human rights are universal. All of us are entitled to basic needs, you know, to food, shelter, and anything else. And I really believe that, you know, we have to challenge this inequality that still continue to exist in the world, because the inequality are too much. And there are people who have so much and others have very little. We also have the distribution of power, where most people take the power into their hands and they want actually to push other down, that they don't have any power. The power of saying, the power of money, the power of privilege, because some people are more privileged than others. So that's how I've reached where I am.
I am so honored, Salome. You honestly have no idea how much I look up to you up there. I respect you a lot because of all that you have done. It hasn't been an easy journey, definitely, but you have trudged on. Like you said, you were obviously born a born leader. And I recall a couple of years ago, you had been at our girls' leadership meeting for Breakforth, and your sister was visiting at that time as well. And I think she lives in Belfast, is it?
Mm-hmm. No, in Wales, yes.
In Wales, right? I recall that, and I could tell that you had a lot of shared values. So obviously it was something that came from the home. So how would you say, you know, your upbringing, what kind of values were instilled in you as a child?
It's actually funny because you see, we are 9 in my family, so it's a big family. It's not a small family. Mm-hmm. And although we are not actually from Nairobi, which is the capital city, my home to Nairobi would be 1 hour, 1.5 if, you know, we have traffic and all that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, growing up, you know, we grew up with the values of, you know, respect, especially for your elders, and respecting your parent and anybody who is older than you. you know, so, and also for you know, the neighbors, the people from the surrounding and all that. And the value of sharing, you know, my father was a huge believer that, you know, even if the neighbor doesn't have food, we have to be able to share. I was actually telling somebody the other day that, you know, or sometimes you won't even have money to buy salt, you know, salt that you put in the food, and you'll go to the neighbor will give you salt, and then when you buy salt, then you share it back, you know, with her, or you give it back. So I grew up in this communal kind of setup, not only a family setup, but also, you know, the community setup where you are not a child of just the family, you are a child of the community. And so you learn how to respect, you know, you learn how to treat people with dignity, you learn how to help, you know, you learn how actually to ground yourself and know that, you know, you are a child and you have to respect your elders. You have to actually to do things according to the norms and the values of the society. You don't go fighting other people. You don't go arguing. You share. You know, that's the kind of upbringing that I was brought up to. And also, I was brought up with the religious values. You know, my father and my mother were very religious. Actually, we had to say rosary. We are Catholics, and we had to say rosary every night. You know, we didn't have a church in my village as well, and our home became the church. And my father actually, you know, worked hard to build that church himself. So I was brought with the religious values and ethos, you know, of loving everyone, you know, and you know, being part and parcel of the society and the community, and also respect, which still are those values that I carry up to here, you know. And I love people. My father actually always liked us being surrounded by people. So we are 9 in our family, but you would think that it's a whole village, because we have so many people coming every day, you know, to share the little that we have. And we were a little better off because my father was a planner. He was an architect. So he had money, you know, when we were growing up, and we had, I wouldn't say we had a hard life, we had a very good life, but we had a large family. And in addition to that, we have the family of the village and the relatives and everybody also coming to be able to share this, the grace that we have, and you know, being actually then also led and moved by the Christian values or those religious values.
And that's another thing that I know it's missing in society, and that's causing the breakdown of society. Most homes don't even practice values. They don't inculcate the values into the home culture. I won't say most homes, some homes, let me say, because there are still a lot of homes that are big on values, and it's what we give to the children that they take out to the street, you know. So also I know that when I was looking up your profile again, you had a stint with economic migration. Yeah, do you want to talk to us about it?
Yeah, I would want to say that, you know, for me, and when I started the network of migrant women, because it started as a network of here, you know, in Ireland. And I want to tell you that I went to the very highest, you know, I wouldn't say that I didn't reach to the very highest to talk about the experiences which we're experiencing in Ireland as migrant women, of which I do even up to today. You know, I learned, you know, for example, about the president of Ireland. And I always wanted to meet the president. That time it was actually President Mary Macaris. And we had written the, you know, her story, which was a book of the stories of women, African women migrating into Ireland. And I really wanted to talk to her because we had so many women with pending deportations. We had a lot of issues which were going on, and we wanted her to understand from a woman perspective. We thought that she would listen to us more. And I was trying every day to see who can help me to reach to the president of Ireland. And I tried many people. But God works in his own miraculous way. I was actually one day working in one of the accommodation centers. It's the second largest accommodation center for people seeking international protection in Ireland. And a call came. It came actually from the president, you know, house that they want to host me and 12 women. Could you believe? And I had struggled so hard, and nobody who wanted to help, even the organizations that you would think they would put you through, nobody did that. And so I was so excited looking for these women. Actually, one of the women that came with me, I told her to write a letter because she had a pending deportation. And so she prepared herself. So what I want to say is that myself, I have no fear. And actually that I learned from my father as well, because even when the thieves used to come and beggars used to come and break in our town, small town where we live, my father used to wake up at the middle of the night and start his car and chase them. Myself, I have that courage of not fearing. You know, I would try anything if I believe, because my father always said, if you know you're speaking the truth and you're standing for the truth, go with it. And don't actually keep quiet when things are going wrong. So for me, I wanted to meet the president and tell her, but not people were just like assuming, oh, that little organization of migrants. People had their assumptions, but I ended up doing that. I've also been able to meet, most of the Taoiseachs, who are in action, and I've been able to go to the Doyle to represent the issues pertaining to issues of migrant women, actually presenting over the 17,000 women and their children and their families who are to be deported in 2004. So I ended up being in the Doyle, challenging the Equality and Justice Committee on that. And while these deportations were, revisited and they were not deported over 17,000 people, for me, it's not a glory for me or anything, and I don't even see it like anything that I have done. But you do not keep quiet to injustice that are going on. You speak out about them, and you actually mobilize people and work with the people who can help you. So I ended up actually at the European level with the economic expert group on economic mobilization. So the expert groups talk about how people should move, the mobility, they call it the blue card, and how people should move around. If you are living in one country, that you don't only have to work in that country, you can move to Belgium, you can move to UK. If it's an EU country, you can move to all these countries and work. You have the freedom of work. And so myself in this group, I was bringing the importance of allowing people who are within the international protection, asylum seekers we call them, and migrants who do not have the European citizenship to be able to be mobile and do the same and get jobs around around Europe themselves, even though they do not have the European passport, which would help them move around. And so I ended up, through another network that I am in, the European Network of Migrant Women. That's how I ended up actually having a seat in that expert group and becoming actually a representative for the European Network of Migrant Women. And when you're there, let me tell you, the most important thing is people to understand that if you don't go speaking out or looking into how you can be able to address some of the challenges and the inequality that exist, whether it's at your level of the family, to the community, to the national level, then there's nobody. So I always tell people, if you're not on the table of where the decisions are being made or solutions are being discussed, then you will be on the agenda. You will be one of the agenda items to be discussed. Amazing. So you have to be on the table to be able to articulate exactly what is going on and actually also articulate solutions. Because me, in every meeting I go with solutions, with my issues, but also solutions. And that's how actually we can only advance. But you'll find that, not many of us who are able to access these decision-making structures. Even here in Ireland, not many people who are involved at community level, at national level, leave alone any other level. And that is so much needed, because when you are not on the table of where the decisions are being made, you are on the agenda of being discussed. And they will not discuss them equally, because you bring your perspective, you bring the perspective of the people that you know and that you work with. So you're bringing something of added value into all this. When they make that policies, when people from our background are not involved, then there's a danger that those policies will not be inclusive. And so they don't take into account about our migration, background, and also the issues that we are experiencing in the countries of destinations when we end up wherever.
It takes boldness, it takes courage, but those are the essential factors to make change in any society, really. And I love the saying that when you look for problem, that's where the solution, that's when you get solution. The answer always lies in the question. So we keep asking, we should not run away from the problem, but rather tackle it, because that's the only way we can make progress. Salome, thank you very much. We're not finished yet.
Thank you.
I'm really, really, really enjoying this. Now, I particularly would always say that if you can't identify yourself, if you can't find yourself, you can't fulfill your purpose, because you don't know where you're going. You don't even know yourself. You're lost within yourself. So how can you even live a fulfilled life? You're in a confused state. So when you talk about legacy, I absolutely agree with you that everyone has a legacy to give. Everyone, So how would you link legacy to self-fulfillment? No, that's a wrong question. How will you link identity to self-fulfillment?
Okay, if I go back to the, that everybody have a, because legacy, it's just a word which is very, very complicated. But if you want actually to simplify it, that each and every one of us live for a purpose. Yes. And a purpose could be your identity. It could be identity of, you are a mother, for example, a mother who see your children suffering, or the neighbors, the children of your neighbor. Because you see, most of the time, actually, in all, if not all of actually the issues that I advocate for or I fight for, they don't affect me. For example, the deportation of the people in 2004, they didn't concern me. I had my citizenship already. I was okay in this country. In the economic development, when you find yourself there, so some people don't relate to issues that you do not have to have the person who is going through the problem to be able to fight about those issues. So your purpose in life could be based on, the experiences of people who look like your children's children. Let me give you an example. For example, let me say that I'm a brown woman, I'm a white woman, yeah. But my neighbor's child, who is actually black, they are being terrorized and they are getting a lot of challenges and they are being taken, back and forth. And I keep quiet because the problem doesn't actually affect me, and maybe it's actually your purpose in life to be able to speak out, because if you don't speak out and then that problem or another problem comes to you in a different way and affect you, you would expect people to help you when a problem comes out. So even each and every one of us, regardless of our identity in terms of our background of where we are coming from, whether we are male or female, whether we are poor or rich, it's actually very important that we know we live for a purpose that gives a kind of meaningful way of living. And where I said actually there at the beginning that our values are everybody values to live a healthy life, values to live happy, values to have if it's not even so much, to be able to have enough to keep you going. So we cannot just choose issues that we identify with because I'm black, I'll fight for black issues. I'm single mother, so I fight for single mother issues. You might have that identity of a single mother or of a black person, but it's not necessarily that you're fighting it because it's affecting you. It could be an issue that affects the society in general. And so your purpose in life is to be able to speak about those issues and those inequalities that you face on your way, to this kind of life that we are living. And the most important thing is to understand that it doesn't have to have you as the person that is impacting on or that it's affecting. It could be anybody. It could be your neighbor. It could be even somebody who is not your neighbor but far away, but you're challenging that and you're arguing that. Remember I said that, we are over 6.5 billion of people, but we have different fingerprint. We have different souls. All of us have unique souls. My soul is not your soul. It cannot even be found with anybody else. So my soul, it's always good to try and investigate in ourselves. What is my purpose? And each and everybody, if we work on it, you'll find your purpose on earth. It may be a purpose of writing and challenging things through writing. It could be singing and maybe making people's, experience things differently. So we would have to look and dig within ourselves and see what is our purpose in life, regardless of whom we are, whether women, men, or black, white, or parent, or whatever we are. But what is there that can help me make a difference, and live for a purpose as well? And that's what legacy is all about. And I told you, it's not about the things that you live after you leave this world. Legacy is an everyday thing. It can be done by a small child, a big person. Mainly we talk about these issues when we are grown up and when we are up. But we have to nurture ourselves through maybe reading more, learning more, researching, and really investigating, expressing that interest to be able to, or generating that interest to be able to understand ourselves more. Because I tell you the truth, each and every one of us have a purpose for living.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sal. I know you're from Kenya.
Yes.
You live in Ireland. How did you get to Congo?
It's actually funny, you know, because myself, even in Kenya, we still already knew about Ireland, you know, and the Irish priest. Myself, you know, Africa, and you know, the Africa was called the Dark Continent. You know, people explored Africa the much they want, and it was not exceptional in Kenya because we also colonized by the British. And during this time, after that, we had a lot of missionaries actually coming into Kenya, and so so I was, when I was born, I was baptized by an Irish priest, for example. So right. I had my connections with Ireland, you know, came from the Holy Ghost, you know, through my baptism by an Irish priest from County Mayo. So and I didn't even know about like Ireland as such, you know, I had not even learned about it. But I actually got to know about college here in Ireland because I came as a student first back in 1994. And so I came as a student. I wasn't even prepared. I found Ireland very backward because Nairobi is actually a cosmopolitan town, you know, it's very, very fast. And like I remember one time the Gadi came to tell us to leave the pub, you know, because it's midnight. And I said, in Kenya, we don't cross, you know, we have 24 hours, you know, and here you're telling us to leave. And I found it very, very difficult. I also found it very small because, like, you know, before I came, I was actually working in Nairobi as a social worker, you know, and so I knew Nairobi in and out. And I was like, oh my God, this town is small. You know, Dublin, I found Dublin very, very, very small compared to Kenya. So I ended up here. I liked it. I loved it. And I'm still up to here. You know, I'm still here up to now. When I came actually at the beginning, we did not need a visa. We went to the alien office to sign that we're in the country. We didn't need much. But now when you talk about that, right, you know, the freedom of movement and all these things that has actually been cut off, you know, and hindered. We live in a very, very different world, not the world of 1994 that I saw, you know, as a young woman. I was a young woman at the time, compared to now. Quite a lot is happening and quite a lot of things are going on. Yeah.
So your involvement with Wezeshada, Wezeshadawa, is it?
Wezeshadada.
Wezeshadada, thanks. How did that evolve?
Yeah, so you see when the vision, because for me Akidwa came as a vision. Actually, even like naming Akidwa, which is Akina Dada Africa in its Swahili for sisterhood. I had come from Kenya and I flew to Uganda to meet my husband, who was then my fiancé. And when I arrived in when he picked me actually from the airport in Entebbe in Uganda, and we were driving to go to Kampala. But on the way we stopped in a hotel to eat, and just because it was really going to be an evening. And there was a conference actually in the hotel where we ended up. And they had Akina Mama wa Africa, which means mothers of Africa. And they were meeting, and I just said, out of curiosity, imagine, don't forget that I just came to meet somebody, and now I find a conference, and I even forget about that, and I enter into the conference to see what is going on. Mm-hmm. So I entered into that conference, and I picked their leaflet, and I said, oh, wow, this is quite good. And I felt that, you know, if anything happens, you know, I would like to know about this organization more. In Uganda, you know, I worked as a gender equality officer, and I worked there for 2 years, actually. And I ended up, myself and the women at the time that were working with me, we ended up mobilizing women in Uganda to form an umbrella organization, which actually became Women Enterprise Association of Rakai. Rakai is one of the districts in Uganda. And this is where the first case of HIV/AIDS had been diagnosed. Wow. So there are so many people that have died. I worked with grandmothers who had lost 9 children, and now they're taking care of their grandchildren, you know, in a big compound, you know, like one woman used to rear up pigs. And they would slaughter pig for the whole family because they had very, very large families. And so this establishment of this network, I liked it. And then I remembered about the Akina Mama Africa. So when I came to Ireland and I started actually stopping African women on the street, I could meet African women in the street. They used to have tying their children. They didn't used to have boogie. And people kept on telling them, you know, here people push boogies, not carrying children on the chest. But we were saying, we want to keep our children warm. It's not that we are doing, we don't want to boogie, but some of them used to ignore those boogies, you know, and just carry them on the back. And so I started talking to these women. And when we held our first meeting to share our experiences, I had enough women to talk to. We didn't have mobile phones at the time, but we had ways actually of communicating. I don't even know how it happened. And so we continued to move, we continued to talk. In 2003, we launched the network, which was actually Akidwa network. And by that time, we had trained so many women. You know, we had gotten money from an organization called the Combat Poverty. And they had given us money, and we had given that money to one of the consultants, a woman actually now who left, and she's living in UK, to go around the whole country in Ireland, the 26 counties, and to check the experiences of African women in Ireland. And so she did that. What actually helped us to do this was to link up with the indigenous women organizations and network, which were already there. So we linked up with them, and she was able to meet a lot of African women around the country. Right. So we became the African Women's Network. But that African Women Network was diluted by the funder, because the funder said that there's no any other network in the country. And the other women from Russia, from, you know, Romania was also not a EU at the time, and so many other women who wanted to be part of this network. But we were already calling ourselves African women. So we changed Akidwa to be Akina Dada Africa, African and Migrant Women's Network in Ireland, to be able to incorporate the other people. So I still felt that, you know, my vision for having just African women, because Africa is a continent, it's not a country. We have 54 countries in Africa, but the assumption of people is that, you know, we are just like a country. So somebody asks you, oh, you're from Africa. Yeah, but you could be from Nigeria, could be from Kenya. They don't understand that. We are still educating them anyway. But so we invited these other people to become part of the network, so that we can also get the funding, because we needed the funding. But if you look at Akidwa up to now, up to 90% of our members and people who participate in our activities are still African women from different African countries. So in 2010, you know, I got another vision, and I felt so much driven to investigate on what is going on. Don't forget, I had already made interactions and contact with women in Uganda and in Kenya as well, because I was working in Kenya as a social worker in the slums of Nairobi. So I was working with women who were head of households. And at the same time, a girl who was my street girls, I was actually in the process of rehabilitating them. She was one of the street girls that I was rehabilitating. She had actually gone to secondary school, and now she was at the University of Nairobi. But she said, the slum where you left us, we are still there, including me, even though I'm in the university. So she said, can't we start something for Africa? So I went to investigate in 2010, and we held different focus group discussions. But out of that came the urge to look at other countries like Congo. We had 5 countries actually in our agenda, including Nigeria and Uganda. But we said we'll start looking in, based on what we have run in Europe, what can we actually, give to Africa? Based on all these years of running and, you know, generating all skills that we have and knowledge, what can we give back to Africa as Africans? And so that's how Wezesha came up. Wezesha means enable. Or, you know, it's really enabling and or empowering. And so since 2010, we've been working with groups in Kenya, in the slums of Nairobi, and in the suburb of Nairobi as well. We've also been working with women in Congo, where the mobilization is actually going on very well. We have over almost 2,000 women who are members. Wow. But what happens is that, you know, Wezesha has its international office in Dublin, but then in each country, like Wezesha Congo, they have their own structures and entities. So they have their leadership, they have their bank, they have their way of controlling money, and Kenya is also the same. What has happened since then, which is one of the biggest achievements, is that, for example, the women in the slums of Nairobi, we've been talking with them, you know, based on this girl who had actually approached me. Don't forget, I had worked in the slums of Nairobi in 1992, 93. You know, I was even a young girl there. I didn't even know as much as I know now. And this girl actually said our life is still the same. So when I went to talk to them, I asked them, do you even want the children of your children to be going through this repeated kind of poverty cycle, you know? And so our plan was for them to be able to buy land, so that even if it's not them who will end up getting out of these slums, their children or their children will get out of the slums one day. And so they've been able, for example, to buy land in Kenya. And, you know, they have actually been growing food in the land that they have bought. We have 25 women who bought these lands. Then in Congo, when we spoke to the women, they wanted a center. You know, it was actually going to be a multi-purpose center where there will be training for women, there will be peace talks in that center, there will be a clinic and a health center for women. when a woman goes there and she needs one thing, she'll end up getting out with so many things. And so that was the plan for the multipurpose center. And with their help and with our help here in Ireland, we have done a few charity balls. You have been able to come to some of those charity balls with the Breakford. Thank you for that. So we were able to buy land, and that land actually we are just waiting to see if we can get money to help them. They're actually in the process of building a small clinic for the women now.
I think that's awesome, because
when
you talk about you're getting land for a set of women, and you're thinking about what's going to happen after that, and after that, you're talking about generational investments, you know, starting from and that's my idea of entrenched legacy, because it's not legacy of the surface, it's legacies that's going deep and being passed on, and that's what the idea is. And
just to say that, you know, we also felt that, you know, Africa has been so much messed, you know, because, you know, when you talk about legacy, you know, let me take you back to where we started of inequality and distribution of goods and power, that Africa is not a poor continent. Africa is one of the most richest continents, and we know that. But, you know, when we hear that there are no colonizers at all in Africa, there are so many colonizers. Africa is still being colonized, you know, even in Congo where we go, you know, they have a lot of minerals, but who actually is providing the guns and the arms for the fight in Africa and all this that is going on. So one of the things that we did identify as Wazesha was that, you know, Africa has been destroyed by this, you know, when you talk about the charity model, that it's everybody way to be given something, you know, even if they are so rich, because like the soil in, for example, Uganda is very rich, and Congo and everywhere, but people expect to be brought the seeds, the blanket, you know, they are provided all these things. That Wezesha actually is the enabling model. So we want people to move from the charity model to the enabling model. And even with the women, we check how much do you have so that we can add you, but not them expecting us that we are coming from Europe to give them. They have a lot of resources, and they have to identify these resources and how they can better themselves.
I love what you just said there, because I have a pet project that I'm working on at the moment, and it's basically called, in my language, looking into your hands. So it's a question of what do you have in your hand? You know, look inwards. You as an individual, you have a lot, you know, so it's the question of looking into what you have in your hand to get what you need. And just like you were saying earlier about when you think, you know, you come up with solutions. It's a question of stopping yourself to say, what are the skills I have? What are the things I can do, you know? And then it goes on and on like that. Salome, I am always blessed listening to you. That's the truth.
Welcome.
And I'm so proud of what you have done so far. One question I have for you before we finish today is, it might seem morbid, and I don't want you to see it as morbid. It's just, let me say I am a very factual person. I'd say it as it is, you know, it is what it is. We're all going to die one day. And I know that a couple of times in the past, when I put up posts like that, like, Busola, who died? Who died? Take it down.
Yes.
Nobody died. It's just facing, understanding that we will all die someday. And I was saying to somebody a while back that even what I want to be done with my body, my kids know. You know, it's something we've talked about. There's no big deal about it. This is what should do. Give all the parts away in case anybody wants to know. You can, you know, take it up from there. Give all the working parts away. You can cremate the rest. My soul is what's important. So the body is, you know, going to go to whatever it is. But not everybody wants that. Some people want to have a tombstone and all of that. And I always say that in life, we're on two parallels. When you're going to look for a job, you're going with a CV to present yourself. But when you die, your tombstone says what you've done.
Yeah.
And some people don't even prepare. What do you want to be written on your tombstone?
You see, like I said again earlier, whatever people may think of me when I'm not there should be the echoes of what I did, you know, if I did anything or I said anything. So it's the words I said, it's my movement, it's my emotions. You know, it could be Salome who used to cry. It used to, you know, because I had been very, very emotional, you know, at the beginning when we are starting the campaign for deportation or campaign for anything or what was going on. So I was very emotional. So for me, it doesn't matter what is written in my tobe. If I'm forgotten, and I know for sure I will not be forgotten, because when we rewrite the history of a migrant in Ireland, perhaps maybe, you know, it will come the women who fought, you know, or the women who made people cry, or a woman who said something. So I would like to be remembered because of anything that I ever said, any gesture that I did make, you know, or anything that will make people happy. For example, I would love to have a happy kind of remembrance rather than a sad one that is there. You know, yeah, many people don't like talking about, you know, what they would want when they're gone, but I don't want people to talk about, you know, big things. It could be very small things. And this is actually what happens in my day-to-day work. And I say that, you know, I may not achieve something very, very big of maybe even having somebody not to be deported, although I have fought for so many deportation or family reunification or something. But if I did something very small, like I wrote a letter that helped somebody, you know, like I said a word that helped somebody. I remember actually, like at the beginning, you know, we had many women who had very high mental health issues, and they used to tell us every Friday that they're like two of them that they're going to kill themselves over the weekend. So, you know, you will not actually sleep that weekend, but you might tell them something that will make them change their mind, or even to have hopes. So if it's a word of hope I gave, if it's anything that I gave, let people remember. Anybody who may be able to remember of anything good, of anything that changed their mind or made them look at things differently, or even something that made people get challenged or feel challenged. And that's what I would do.
And on that note, I would have to say that it's the small things matter as well. You know, if you're watching this, I want us to bear in mind, it doesn't always, like Salome said, it doesn't always lie in the big things. The small things that we do on a daily basis. Let's make our day count. Let's live a life of legacy. Let's have a day packed with legacy. It could be a smile that will change somebody's, you know, narrative for the rest of that day. We never know what anybody is waking up with, or whatever thoughts they're going through. And the one word you will say to them will make a difference. Also, before we finish today, I want to encourage everybody that's in Ireland or that would have witnessed what happened regarding the young boy that was killed last Wednesday, was it? On the 30th of December. We're appealing. The guards need the information to be able to make a fair decision, to be able to come to a right conclusion. The family needs closure. So we need to know exactly what happened. So if anybody has any information, please hand it over to the Gada Ombudsman or to GSOC. We will be posting the information under this Facebook Live so that you can all have access to anything you've seen at all, anything, you know, that will help the investigation. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you, Salome. Thank you for sharing your brand of legacy. It's empowering, it's encouraging and inspiring. And I'm encouraging everyone, join us again next week, Sunday at 6 o'clock on Family Meeting Legacy Talks. We will be talking with somebody that's changing the narrative of people that have gone through, I'm trying to find the right word to describe it, through different forms of accidents or pains, and they have scars, and how they're changing those scars to make them stars. This guy is doing a massive transformation in people's lives, and I hope you are doing something to change somebody's narrative in all that you do. Thank you. On behalf of myself and Salome, I say thank you once again for joining us today. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. I am so grateful. I'm going to try and this is my second time I have to say we're doing Facebook Live. So okay. I will have to find a way to end this.
But thank you anyway, and also to say, my condolences to George family. It's a very, very difficult time for the family and the African community in general, because there's also a lot of, trolls going on, which are not good, especially for a community that has been so much marginalized. And I'm hoping that, justice will be done for George and his family. So we just have to, to be calm and actually just to play our role, whoever can play any role, to ensure that justice is achieved.
And also to appeal to the people protesting as well. I'm not sure it's a good idea really to continue the protest, given the damage that's been carried out, so that's been reported. I don't know, I haven't seen any, I don't know, but it's been reported as well, just so that it's not the true focus of what people are trying to discover or to sort out is not distorted. It's important to not marry it with violence or anything like that. So that's about it. I think we can. Awesome. When you talk about getting land for a set of women, and you're thinking about what's going to happen after that, and after that, you're talking about generational investments, starting from and that's my idea of entrenched legacy, because it's not legacy of the surface, it's legacies that's going deep and being passed on, and that's what the idea is.
And just to say that, we also felt that, Africa has been so much messed, because, when you talk about legacy, let me take you back to where we started of inequality and distribution of goods and power, that Africa is not a poor continent. Africa is one of the most richest continents, and we know that. But when we hear that there are no colonizers at all in Africa, there are so many colonizers. Africa is still being colonized, even in Congo where we go, they have a lot of minerals, but who actually is providing the guns and the arms for the fight in Africa and all this that is going on. So one of the things that we did identify as Wazesha was that, Africa has been destroyed by this, when you talk about the charity model, that it's everybody way to be given something, even if they are so rich, because like the soil in, for example, Uganda is very rich, and Congo and everywhere, but people expect to be brought the seeds, they blanket, they are provided all these things. That Wezesha actually is the enabling model. So we want people to move from the charity model to the enabling model. And even with the women, we check how much do you have so that we can add you, but not them expecting us that we are coming from Europe to give them. They have a lot of resources, and they have to identify these resources and how they can better themselves.
I love what you just said there, because I have a pet project that I'm working on at the moment, and it's basically called, in my language, looking into your hands. So it's a question of what do you have in your hand? Look inwards. You as an individual, you have a lot, so it's the question of looking into what you have in your hand to get what you need. And just like you were saying earlier about when you think, you come up with solutions. It's a question of stopping yourself to say, what are the skills I have? What are the things I can do? And it goes on and on like that. Salome, I am always blessed listening to you. That's the truth.
Welcome.
And I'm so proud of what you have done so far. One question I have for you before we finish today is, it might seem morbid, and I don't want you to see it as morbid. It's just, let me say I am a very factual person. I'd say it as it is, it is what it is. We're all going to die one day. And I know that a couple of times in the past, when I put up posts like that, like, Busola, who died? Take it down.
Yes.
Nobody died. It's just facing, understanding that we will all die someday. And I was saying to somebody a while back that even what I want to be done with my body, my kids know. It's something we've talked about. There's no big deal about it. This is what should do. Give all the parts away in case anybody wants to know. You can, take it up from there. Give all the working parts away. You can cremate the rest. My soul is what's important. So the body is, going to go to whatever it is. But not everybody wants that. Some people want to have a tombstone and all of that. And I always say that in life, we're on two parallels. When you're going to look for a job, you're going with a CV to present yourself. But when you die, your tombstone says what you've done.
Yeah.
And some people don't even prepare. What do you want to be written on your tombstone?
You see, like I said again earlier, whatever people may think of me when I'm not there should be the echoes of what I did, if I did anything or I said anything. So it's the words I said. It's my movement. It's my emotions. It could be Salome who used to cry. It used to, because I had been very, very emotional. At the beginning when we are starting the campaign for deportation or campaign for anything or what was going on. So I was very emotional. So for me, it doesn't matter what is written in my tomb. If I'm forgotten, and I know for sure I will not be forgotten, because when we rewrite the history of a migrant in Ireland, perhaps maybe, it will come the women who fought, or the women who made the people cry, or a woman who said something. So I would like to be remembered because of anything that I ever said, any gesture that I did make, or anything that will make people happy, for example. I would love to have a happy kind of remembrance rather than a sad one that is there. Many people don't like talking about, what they would want when they're gone, but I don't want people to talk about, big things. It could be very small things. And this is actually what happens in my day-to-day work. And I say that, I may not achieve something very, very big of maybe even having somebody not to be deported, although I have fought for so many deportation or family reunification or something. But if I did something very small, like I wrote a letter that helped somebody, you know, like I said a word that helped somebody. I remember actually, like at the beginning, we had many women who had very high mental health issues, and they used to tell us every Friday that they're like two of them that they're going to kill themselves over the weekend. So you will not actually sleep that weekend, but you might tell them something that will make them change their mind, or even to have hopes. So if it's a word of hope I gave, if it's anything that I gave, let people remember. Anybody who may be able to remember of anything good, of anything that changed their mind or made them look at things differently, or even something that made people get challenged or feel challenged. And that's what I would.
And on that note, I would have to say that it's the small things matter as well. If you're watching this, I want us to bear in mind, it doesn't always, like Salome said, it doesn't always lie in the big things. The small things that we do on a daily basis. Let's make our day count. Let's live a life of legacy. Let's have a day packed with legacy. It could be a smile that will change somebody's, narrative for the rest of that day. We never know what anybody is waking up with, or whatever thoughts they're going through. And the one word you will say to them will make a difference. Also, before we finish today, I want to encourage everybody that's in Ireland or that would have witnessed what happened regarding the young boy that was killed last Wednesday, was it? On the 30th of December. We're appealing. The guards need the information to be able to make a fair decision, to be able to come to a right conclusion. The family needs closure. So we need to know exactly what happened. So if anybody has any information, please hand it over to the Gada Ombudsman or to GSOC. We will be posting the information under this Facebook Live so that you can all have access to anything you've seen at all, anything that will help the investigation. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you, Salome. Thank you for sharing your brand of legacy. It's empowering, it's encouraging and inspiring. And I'm encouraging everyone, join us again next week, Sunday at 6 o'clock on Family Meeting Legacy Talks.